Have you ever wanted to start a podcast of your own, but you just didn't even know where to start? I mean, it's so complicated.
It can be really complicated. Thank goodness we're here, Strick.
Our team can help you do everything. Intro and outro music, that cool guy with a really deep voice to introduce you, show art, show notes, audio production, hosting. We can even send you a microphone if you need one.
So if you are looking for a really unique creative marketing piece, turnkeypodcast.com is for you. We will take care of everything for you when it comes to creating a unique piece that you can send out to your market.
You need to be the expert in your field, and the best way to do that is through podcasting. We can create an entire podcast season for you that you can send out as a marketing piece to your customers, to your potential customers, and let them know that you are the expert in the field.
Call today for your free consultation. Just talk to one of the teammates that we have here at turnkeypodcast.com. Check it out. You're going to love it. It's going to be great.
Hey, Funkin' fans, please don't forget, you can always go to patreon.com/nice guys. Please make a donation for the show. We want to keep the lights on.
I have nothing to add. You did it so well, Strickland. Let's just get on with the show.
No, but you need to add something, Doug. Come on. Contribute, please.
Patreon.com/nice guys. That's the spot. Please, we are 100% funded by you all. And so far, we're 100% funded by you all. Let's just keep going.
As little as $2 a month. That's all we need. Thank you.
Here's what's next on the Nice Guys on Business.
People only do what's in their own best interest. When they come to work every day, they come to work for themselves, not for the boss. And so that's step number one for a boss to realize. My employees come to work not because of this great company that I founded, but because they have their own self-interest at heart. And so we start with that concept. Understand it's not about you. Sorry, it's about your employee. And then we drill down and we say that they're one of several reasons why people are motivated to do something. And we can use Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs to kind of explain this. At the bottom, we have a need for food, clothing, water, shelter. And there are some people that will leave a company for $3 an hour more. That's just where they are in life. And that's just the only thing that motivates them. And we can't change that.
They may take our lives, but they'll never take the Nice Guys on Business podcast. Sounds Irish. That's dumb. Need an education on how to grow your business? The Nice Guys are here to help. Learn about great customer service, networking, and how just being nice can help you prosper. Now, here are your hosts, Doug Sandler and Strickland Bonner.
Hey, welcome back, Funkin' fans and Nice Guy community. My name is Strickland Bonner. On the other side of the mic, Mr. Doug Sandler. It is a week of love, baby.
Oh, it is a week of love. I'll tell you. First, Elena love. Today, Scott love.
We are continuing the love.
It all crashes and burns tomorrow.
Can you feel love tonight? I'm sorry.
I would give you a Lion King reference, although that is not a song that I can actually recognize from the Lion King.
At least not the way I sing it, right?
Right, exactly. That's what I was getting to. Let's see. We got a couple things to cover, and then we will get to our episode or our interview with Scott Love. First thing is, if you are listening on Overcast right now, please take a moment. Sorry, I just banged my glasses right into my...
Ouch. Sounded painful.
Good. Yeah, it was. It was painful. Go over to Overcast and recommend our episode. It's the little gold star. It's the one right next to the play button. Somewhere around the play button is the little gold star. Please hit that. We want to make sure that you are recommending our episodes. Please, we need your help because... did I make a promise? Did I make it yesterday, Strick?
Yeah, if we beat Tim Ferriss, you made it yesterday. If we beat Tim Ferriss, you're going to find a way to get an interview with him somehow, by hook or by crook.
Yeah, we are. Hopefully, it'll be by hook because I don't want to crook anything.
No.
So I committed yesterday that if we beat Tim Ferriss on Overcast and we become the #1 show in the business category on Overcast, I did make the promise that wherever he is, as long as he's in the United States, I will fly to him and I will find him. I will track him down. And I will make sure a microphone gets in his face, and he will be on our show. Even if it's just for a few seconds. Strick, you have to carry the episode. I'm joking.
Apparently. Yes, and if you are a member of law enforcement, either local or federal, wherever Tim Ferriss may be, please do not cue him into this, because we need the element of surprise, apparently, when this is actually going to happen, if it happens. You back, Doug?
I'm not back yet. Hold on.
Apparently, Doug is choking away. So while we're waiting on Doug to come back, I can talk a little bit about Scott Love. Scott Love says, if you will lead, they will stay. Discover the secrets of employee loyalty, which is kind of interesting because it ties into what Elena Love talked about. And it really is about employee loyalty. And Scott actually has a book called Why They Follow, How to Lead with Positive Influence. I'm really just playing the music so when Doug comes back.
Are you feeling that this is a technical difficulty, or is this?
I guess that's true.
Normally you just play that when we're having some technical problems, and I just had a me problem for a moment.
Yeah, just a you problem. I guess that's true. That is not a technical problem.
I got all excited about my challenge to myself to get out there and actually for the Nice Guy community to rally around the show. God forbid, Nice Guy community actually do anything.
So Scott has got a thing on the book page that says C-Suite Book Club, World's Best Business Book Club.
Yeah.
Feature selection. The C-Suite Book Club is the world's best business book club?
Well, I'm in it, so I would say yes. I'm gonna go with the answer yes, Wink, for 40 points. Yeah, hell yeah. The C-Suite Book Club, dude, it's not easy. It's not easy to be a part of that. You have number one, you got to have a best-selling book. That's number one. And not only that, but you have to go to New York. There's a whole production that's involved. They make you feel like a rock star. There's so many. Wait a minute, those are benefits. Those aren't actually hurdles that you have to get over. Oh, you have to pay. That's right. I forgot that part. No, I think that being a part of the C-Suite Book Club, Bestsellers Club, is a big deal. It was a big deal for me. I was invited. I was selected. I don't think that anybody just with money can be a part of the club. I think you actually have to be legit.
Okay.
Why do I feel like I'm selling you right now?
It was kind of funny. It feels a little self-congratulatory to say world's best business book club. When you say you're the world's best, typically you have to put some metric to say that. But I mean, it's Jeffrey's just like, dude, we're the best. It's so, like,
Strick,
okay, cool. It's all good.
So I'm going to give you, after we get off the air from this, I'm going to give you Jeffrey's email. And you already have his email. I'm going to give you his phone number. I want you to you just pick up the phone and have a conversation with him. I can't control this man. There's nothing I can do to control him.
Well, that's why I thought it was funny when I read that, because it's like, I know that's Jeffrey, and it's like, okay, it makes sense that he would call the C-Suite Book Club the world's best business book club. It's okay. It's no big deal.
Have you ever seen over on like LinkedIn, you've seen people's profiles and they say thought influencer or something like that. When somebody says that, I'm like, I don't think so.
Okay.
In this particular case, though, I don't feel it's the same way, because if I'm calling myself an influencer, I would say, yeah, I guess that's kind of like a dicky kind of thing to do. Mm-hmm. But if a number of people actually participate and engage within the program, I mean, dozens of people engage within the program, I think that it probably is fairly accurate.
So it sounds like right now you are trying to defend Jeffrey Hazlett and the C-Suite Book Club. And that probably is because it sounds like I'm attacking him. And you know what? Didn't mean it to come out that way. So we probably should just move on from this.
No, you dug this hole. I did not. So
No, you're right. I'm saying, obviously, if you're feeling the need to defend him, it's probably because I came off as if I was attacking. So I'm apologizing for coming off as if I'm attacking, because it really didn't mean it that way. I really was trying to focus on Scott. It just hit me funny that I'm looking at the badge of the C-Suite Book Club. That's the world's best business book club.
In which case, I think that phrase, what is the, the phrase is never bite the hand that feeds you, comes into play here. I believe that. I think that we have both been rather successful on the heels in the wake of the reputation that has been laid out before us by one Jeffrey Hazlett. Don't you think so?
I think so.
Okay.
But this isn't about Jeffrey. This is about Steve, about Scott, and we really should get back to that.
It's not about Jeffrey. It's about Steve. Who's Steve? Okay, let's get to Scott now.
Scott, yes, it would be Scott Love, yeah.
All right, let's get to do we have anything else to cover before we get? Scott was a great guest. He really does cover a lot about leadership and why people follow the people that are in their path. And I think that it's important, if you're a leader, to listen to this episode. If you don't feel like you're a leader, this is actually the good starting point for you to realize why an effective leader is a good leader. So let's get to the interview, shall we?
All right, sounds like a plan. Let's do it.
Okay, so we are proud to be affiliated with the C-Suite Radio Network. There's that Jeffrey Hazlett thing again, and the Greatness Podcast Network. Let's do it. The Nice Guys on Business Podcast, Scott Love. Everybody is motivated by something. We just need to figure out what it is. And I think that is one of the quotes that Scott Love uses many times, either from stage or even some of the writing that he's done. If you are a leader of people, listen up. Scott Love is here to share some inside tips. And if you work with people, and who doesn't, check out what makes Scott a highly sought after leader's leader, a great writer. If you have not seen his blog, you're going to check that also. Never talking at you and offering his personal side of leadership, author and friend of the C-Suite Network. Welcome, Scott, to the Nice Guys on Business podcast.
Thanks, Doug. I'm glad to be a certified nice guy finally. This is awesome.
Yeah, well, that was a long time coming because, I tried originally when we met last year to get you on the schedule, and you're a busy guy, Scott.
Yeah, I like to keep a lot of balls in the air. Actually, maybe 2 balls, but just I think the frequency of just trying to keep focused on one thing is really hard. But I think it's just the expertise that I've developed along the way on the topic that we're going to talk about. I'm passionate about taking that to the market, not really to the market, but just really giving that content away to people.
No, and I see it, and you do provide a lot of content that's out there. And as I'm looking and I'm doing some research, I'm trying to figure out, well, exactly where is it that you make your dollars? And sometimes it comes down to giving away a lot of free content. And then in the pre-interview stuff, you said, "Hey, listen, I just want to add some value to your listeners' lives," and that was kind of cool.
Right.
A lot of the stories that you talk about, again, whether it's in your book or whether it's from stage, you talk about one of probably your younger kid, and at the time maybe it was your toddler.
Right.
Are you thinking that most people have the attention span of a 3-year-old?
I think more of like a 16-year-old. My boy is now 16, and it's funny how in that generation, I remember he and his girlfriend were on a date once. I got to go with them, and they're both on their cell phones the whole time during their date. I wanted to take a picture of it and put millennials in love. They're both on their cell phones. Yeah. And then sadly, he even broke up with her via Twitter or via text message. Oh, so I guess it's just that's the way that generation is, and the attention span is pretty short.
Well, but what is it though about people nowadays? Because it really does come down to technology has changed everything, including the way that we lead. So maybe can you point out a couple of examples, or maybe an example of something that technology has really done in the last 5 or 10 years to either make it easier or more challenging for us to be leaders?
I think it's too many different distractions. I think even in business today, people are chasing too many bright, shiny ideas rather than focusing on the core. And I think because we have all these options competing for our attention, I think it's a leader's job to really have that resounding message over and over again that brings them back to the core focus. So I think in spite of having all this technology and all this distraction, I think a leader has to, in many ways, go against that and bring people back to the core message of what are we truly in the business of? What is that noble goal? Who are we really trying to serve? This company isn't about our own profit. It has to be about something that's a greater calling. And so I think with all the distractions that people have, the leader has to fight that in many ways and bring people back to that singular message over and over again.
And you share a lot of stories about the technology thing, but as a guy that graduated from the U.S. Naval Academy just a couple of years ago, right?
Back in the Cold War when Reagan was president. Thank you very much.
So how many? That's okay. How many of those leadership lessons? Because that's really U.S. Naval Academy. I mean, that's old school leadership. Technology and talking about your son and his girlfriend and the new and the new technology. How many of those leadership lessons and stories do you pull from that experience at the U.S. Naval Academy? Because that's really the tried and true idea. When somebody thinks leader, they do think of, I mean, at least I do. I always think military, very disciplined, very focused.
Right. And I think some of the core concepts I learned at a young age from that. Even before that, Doug, I learned in Boy Scouts. I was an Eagle Scout, so I did the whole thing from Cubs to Eagle. And you learn how to lead at a peer level. And I think when I talk to business groups, we all think of the military as being the epitome of leadership development, but really everybody is a leader. Even in an organization, it's not necessarily the person that has the title. It can be someone that has a lot of political capital. For example, the office administrator who's been there for a long time, who knows what the culture is all about. And so I think even though I'll tell stories that are different and interesting to most people, it's all about taking those concepts and explaining them in a way that everyday people can take those lessons, because everybody's a leader in some way, shape, or form. You don't have to run a large company. You can be a solopreneur. You mentioned solopreneurs that are a big part of your listenership. those people are involved in Rotary clubs, involved in civic activities in their parish or their synagogue, and all those require leadership skills. So I think it's interesting to look at all the legendary legends that we've learned leadership from, but what's most applicable to most people, I think, is how do I get people to do what I want and have them thank me for talking them into it? The daily grind that we all face, whether we're in sales or management, it's being able to get that following to go along with what we want and to be enthusiastic participants in that.
It's truly the enthusiasm. I think that's always the most valuable part. When you can find someone that will follow you, that's enthusiastic about following you, you feel like you've really accomplished it, because that's where the passion lies, I think, in that enthusiasm.
Absolutely right. That's what trips our trigger as people in business. When we have people that we're making a difference and they're grateful for that, that's what's exciting about it.
Let's talk for a second about why they follow. So you wrote this book. Why'd you write the book to begin with? Let's start there. Because
I have some unique perspectives on leadership that are very, very simple. And I'm not a PhD. I only have an undergraduate degree, but my experiential base has been vast in terms of my empirical research. Because what I do, call it my day job, if you will, but what my passion is, I do high stakes headhunting. I recruit partners for international law firms. And I've worked in different industries for over 22 years. And I've had literally tens of thousands of conversations with managers, Doug, about why they want to leave or why they want to stay. So when I talk to people and they'd say, I love it here. I don't want to leave. I appreciate the call, but I love it here. I'd always ask them, why is that? Because I'm just curious. And I found out that there was always one reason. It was always because of the relationship with the boss, one level up. That was it. That was enough to cause top performers to not even want to consider making a move to a company that would pay them more. And so what I saw was that that's a pretty simple concept. And then my experience of being a leadership trainer when I was on active duty years ago, I'd had the experience of training people as a leader. I pretty much combined both of those into my book, explaining that there are some simple concepts, and we're not talking about 180-degree changes. We're just talking about small 1-degree pivots in core areas. If we just do a little bit over here, a little bit over here, and a little bit over here, wow, now we're exceptional in how we get people to follow. And so I wanted to put it in a book that's simple. You can read it on a flight or over a weekend, that gives them tactical exercises and action steps where they can see an immediate result in how people respond. And that's something I'm really passionate about. Just like you mentioned before, just the rush that we get when people follow us, when they say, thanks for doing business with me. It's exciting to see that in print form. That's what motivated me to write the book.
It's interesting because as soon as you write a book, and I was fortunate enough to write one a couple of years ago when I first started this adventure into professional speaking, and what's so funny is that you had that knowledge before you released the book, but as soon as you put that knowledge in writing and you document it, you become the instant expert on the subject. And I'm assuming that your clients feel the same way, and the law firms that you work for, especially law firms which are very, very conservative by nature, they probably love the fact that you wrote a book.
They do. Most of them do. And what I found, though, is that many times in a professional services organization, they'll put people in place that might not have the competence required to build that following. And especially within a law firm, it's peer level leadership. You have to lead people that are your colleagues, which is difficult because you don't have the real authority. And so I found that, some of the law firm clients that are into leadership development, and there's not a lot of them. I've only heard a few firms say that they hire consultants to come in and develop their people. But those love the book. And then other people, it's just not part of what they're all about. Every firm is different. But I think for most businesses, when you can see that your business has to depend upon your abilities to get people to follow, whether you're in sales or leadership, most of the people in that sort of business, they see a lot of value in the book.
So Scott, answer this, because this is just a curiosity of mine. As I was doing some research on you, I then started to do some research on some of the principles that were attached to leadership. Tell me what you feel about this one. So,
Sure.
And you mentioned something that definitely just triggered it for me: peer-to-peer leaders. And what do you feel about the validity of the Peter principle that states that every employee will be promoted eventually to a position of their incompetency? Is this reality, or if so, can we change this?
Wow, that's a deep question. I think it is reality. Can I pine on how we change that?
Yeah.
I don't know if we can. I think that's just the nature of the world of work. I think giving people skills and challenging them and giving them collateral duties I think that's the only way you can really expand that competency of individuals is to stretch them, them in different ways.
Yeah, I agree. So share, I mean, now that you mentioned that, you have to stretch them a little bit. Share some personality flaws or maybe just some practice flaws that might be holding people back if they want to be in a position of leadership and can't quite seem to get the attention of the person that's going to promote them. What are some of the things that you find that are holding people back?
I think the biggest detriment to people succeeding is fear. And we can kind of take that concept and apply it in multiple ways. So if I'm in a company and I want to get my boss to pay attention to me, I might be afraid to ask for help. I would recommend going to your boss and saying, I have some ideas. I want to get your permission to run with these. Put yourself and make yourself vulnerable. Put yourself in a position where you're taking on more responsibilities. You've also got to make sure you're in the right type of company that has that type of culture that doesn't look at failure as a negative. And not every company is like that. So there's some risk associated with this. But I'd say in general terms, I think it's fear that keeps people from stretching. What happens if I fail? How am I going to look? Mm-hmm. And it's different in every different company. In some companies, you don't want to take that risk because you will look like someone that isn't deserving to get more responsibility if you fail. So I would say it depends on the type of company that you're in. But in general terms, it's fear, I think, that's keeping people from really succeeding and stretching. And it's so funny. My little girl's 5 years old, and I've taught her, face your fears, that action dissipates fear. And she's learned this, that if you're afraid of something, the only way you can make that fear dissipate is to take steps towards that. And so it's whether it's doing something in the playground or taekwondo or whatever. And so about 2 months ago, I hear her on a playground with another little girl. The other little girl says, I'm too afraid to go down that slide. My daughter says to her, face your fears. You can do it. It's a real encourager.
It is amazing that the stories that your kids will teach because they've learned them from you and how those lessons will continue on for the rest of it. My kids are a little bit older. They're 21 and 25. And just to listen to the things that they talk about and the stories they share, even if it's online, if you just happen to be peering into your kid's Facebook account and you see them telling a story, even in 140 characters or less, about something that you taught them when they were little. It's so heartwarming. And that must have been a heartwarming moment for you to see that your daughter was actually sharing a lesson learned.
And what's interesting is that my son, who's 16, and my kids adore each other. My little girl thinks that he's just the cat's meow. And my son is a 16-year-old international model. And he signed on with the Wilhelmina Modeling Agency.
I saw
he's
that
in LA
with those blonde locks of that almost white hair that he has.
Yeah, that's right. He's got that Norwegian Nordic look. He's a quarter Asian. So it's kind of Euro ? You're not sure exactly where he's from. Yeah. And, when he was a little guy, he was afraid to get his photo taken. And I heard him tell my little girl, it's okay. I was afraid to get my photo taken at one time also. And what's interesting is that whenever he'd be with me in my car, I'd listen always to Brian Tracy CDs and other sort of motivational speakers. And I think a lot of that stayed with him, to always keep that positive attitude, to set your goals high, that anytime you have a failure. He had this one failure. He overslept a casting call with one of the top photographers with Vogue. And he just felt demoralized, and he was really upset about that. And he was kind of sick that day. This is in New York over Fashion Week. And I told him, I said, I slept through ship's movement when I was on active duty, and it's not the end of the world. I said, how can you take this and use this to your advantage? And he said, I'm going to take this and I'm never going to let this happen again. Okay, well, how can you prepare to be better rested? If you're sick, tell people that. And just teaching him that failure is everywhere. You're always going to fail, but it's not a matter of, is it good or bad? The question is, how can I use that to my advantage? It's just feedback. And so those are the things I get a lot of satisfaction. And I know you have also, Doug, teaching your children how to face their fears, how to be leaders, how to step up and do the right thing and put themselves in a position of where they're going to be taking some risks. And sometimes you take a shot and you miss. And you and I know from being entrepreneurs, sometimes you take a shot and you miss, and you've got to reassess and you've got to come back and start your business a little bit differently, or do a restart. And so those are stories that I tell whenever I speak to groups from the stage. I'll tell stories that people can relate to, and always have some salient messages that stay with them. If I can give them one or two good ideas and action steps, then that's a success in a presentation, in my opinion.
I completely agree, and it is amazing how relatable, when you start talking about your kids from stage, how relatable you are to your entire audience. For the most part, they're going to have a very similar story, whether it's a 3, a 5, or a 20-year-old. They're going to have the same story.
That's right.
The lessons we learn from our kids and Dr. Seuss all at the same same time.
That's right.
Hey, I want to go back to the book for a second, because it asks a simple question. You know, the title of the book being "Why They Follow," and it is a simple question, but it's got potentially a lot of complexity to the answer. So let me just help our audience understand, why is it that people follow?
Because they see that, so you have an employee or a colleague or someone that's on a nonprofit group, and I always explain it like this, that people only do what's in their own best interest. When they come to work every day, they come to work for themselves, not for the boss. And so that's step number one for a boss to realize. My employees come to work not because of this great company that I founded, but because they have their own self-interests at heart. And so we start with that concept. Understand, it's not about you. Sorry, it's about your employee. And then we drill down and we say that they're one of several reasons why people are motivated to do something. And we can use Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs to kind of explain this. At the bottom, we have a need for food, clothing, water, shelter. And there are some people that will leave a company for $3 an hour more. That's just where they are in life. And that's just the only thing that motivates them. And we can't change that. And then the need above that is a need to be in a safe environment. A need above that is to be with a team, to be with other people, the affiliation. The fourth need, according to Maslow, is a need for recognition, ego, to be recognized. And then finally, it's self-actualization, to be fulfilled in work that makes a difference. So I'd say if we look at those top three needs, the teamwork, feeling like we're part of a team, and the place of work is important to have that sort of community. The recognition showing that you make a difference, that your work matters, and then also that you're engaged in work that solves problems on an emotional level for other people. If we could kind of ask ourselves with our employee, looking at our team, what motivates each of my employees in one of those areas? And I'd be willing to bet if you know your team pretty well, you can be able to pretty much predict which one of those areas is going to motivate them. So it depends on the individual. But I'd say the first lesson is realize it's not about you, it's about your colleagues coming to work every day. They come to work for themselves.
Share your expertise on this one, Scott, because I think this is an area that this has been most of the jobs that I've had. Unfortunately, I have not been able to be employed in the last 20 years. Cause I always tell everybody I'm gainfully unemployable at this point of being being self-employed. No, I think I've screwed it up quite enough. Nobody else is going to want to bring in my problems to their organization. But much of the way that corporate America is based today is based upon the quip, the beatings will continue until morale improves.
That's right.
So
that's right.
Can you see this, or is there been a transition away from that philosophy? It's not a good philosophy, but I just think it's one that's that underground programming.
Right. I don't think that society has changed very much in that way, because people will leave every day because of the relationship with the boss. And they'll stay with the company because of the relationship with the boss. And you've probably heard the phrase that people join companies, but they leave bosses.
Right.
So I think even though we know about this, it's our human nature that we have to go back and relearn those same lessons because of the human condition that we're in. We're always going to be failing. We're always going to be making mistakes. It's just how we are. We always have to continue to grow and continue to go back and relearn those concepts because you're a different person every 90 days. And so I think that I haven't seen in society that there is any sort of trend. Yeah, and I hate to sound less optimistic,
That's okay. That's all right.
But I just my perception is that there are some amazing, exceptional bosses out there, and those are people who are self-aware, that have the ability to legitimately empathize with other people and connect with them on an emotional level, that have the ability to manage their own emotions and understand why people come to work every day. And they know their job is to get those people to have positive feelings about coming to work. And I'm not talking about making the workplace fun and have, free pet massages, for your cat.
And a beer on tap and ping pong and foosball, right? All the that stuff.
It's all about we're doing hard work that makes a difference. And that in itself motivates people to know that we're doing something that's challenging, it's interesting, and it makes a difference in the lives of people on a personal level. Being able to take that and use that as that carrot, if you will, rather than the comp. The comp is going to motivate some people, but it's usually not the people that you want to build that long-term team with. There has to be comp in place. There has to be compensation that has value, and it all depends. And we could spend a lot of time just talking about that one issue. But I think overall, if a manager can say and ask himself or herself, what's the vision of our company? Where are we going? What is our purpose? What is that noble goal that we're solving, that problem that we're solving for other people? And tie that in with people coming to work every day. Then they're going to see some traction. They're going to see people that are going to stay there. They're going to see some people that are going to put in a little bit more energy to accomplish that task. So I don't think that society itself has changed. I think that there are some people that have stepped up and others that will never change. And that's why companies will say, I hate it here because of the boss, because the boss's ego or the personal hubris supersedes the effective business decisions. And those are things I've heard. One of the things I do as a headhunter, and I know there's a lot of people that I know in the recruiting industry. I used to have a recruiter training company that I just sold last year. And that's where I got a lot of my platform skills from speaking and consulting and doing management consulting in that niche. That was common, that we know that there are some people that we can never pull away from a company. And those are the types of companies that we want to have as clients. And there are other people that they're with companies and there's a lot of turnover, and it's because of the leadership of that company. And so headhunters will gravitate towards those types of companies where there's not a lot of positive leadership. There's a lot of turnover over there. So those are some of my general thoughts about that issue.
I guess I don't want to complain too much because I know the nature of your job is people leaving because potentially there's relationships that are not good. And my relationships with companies as a speaker is going in and teaching them how to improve their culture. So I guess I really don't want it all to get too good too quickly because I'll be out of a job and you will be as well.
Right. Well, it's funny because there's always going to be a market for people like that. I think, for people like you, whenever I speak at a conference, it's really showing those managers how to be the boss that nobody's going to leave and giving them tactical ways, small action steps they can take where people will see a big difference in their response. And here's the thing, this in business, is it easier to get a new customer or to keep an existing one happier, right?
Oh, geez, I'd much
easier
rather,
to keep an existing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the same thing with employees. Is it easier to hire and find a new employee, or is it easier to keep the existing ones? Well, of course. And it's not necessarily retention. It's about loyalty, having people work with their heart and their soul. If you focus on that, then retention is not going to be an issue. You're not going to have that turnover, and you're going to create a culture that attracts high performers.
I could not agree more. I have an entire program just based upon doing more with the customers that you have. And while business development is extremely important, it's not, it pales in comparison to doing more with what you have within an organization, both internally with the relationships that you build with your employees and externally with the customers and prospective customers that you have as well. So help connect the dots for a moment, because we do have a lot of entrepreneurs in our world, and many of them, as we talked about, solopreneurs. So they're running their own business, they're doing their own thing, everything from operations to accounting to sales. Connect the dots between leadership traits and sales skills for a moment.
Sure. I would say that they're seamless and they're perfect and perfect alignment. And that's because leadership is all about, if you look at one of the best quotes in sales I ever heard, and I don't remember who said this, otherwise I give them attribution, but salesmanship is about making decisions with which people will agree. You're making decisions to lead them forward. In my job, in headhunting, it's a pure sales job. I'm calling partners to engage them in a dialogue about other opportunities, and they have a sense of resistance, so I have to build the rapport, bring the walls down, and before I present an opportunity, I always ask them, tell me about your ideal situation. What does that look like to you? If I were to call you up with an opportunity, it would make your world perfect. Tell me what that would look like. And they tell me. Now I know what their hot buttons are. It's kind of like, sell me this pen. Sell me this pen. Well, tell me about the problems you're having with your current pen. Tell me about the opportunities you'd have with the ideal pen. What's the criteria of a pen that you would buy today? Okay, now let me tell you about this pen. And so I think salesmanship is all about leading people forward to the next step. Yeah. And sometimes that next step might not necessarily be them signing on the line. It might be opening their mind up. That's one of the things I do when I'm talking with partners. I'll ask them this: do you think it's possible that there could be something better for you than your current situation? What's the answer? Maybe. Well, that's a yes. Well, since we're on the phone, why don't we talk about that? Tell me about your ideal situation. And so I try to probe. I try to find out what their motivations are, their intrinsic motivations, and I sell to that. So I think that's what salesmanship, because I've done a lot of sales presentations, I've done a lot of leadership presentations, and really the core elements are both of those types of programs are the same concepts. It's not about you. It's about service to other people. People are going to make decisions based on personal and emotional reasons, and you have to sell to that. And don't sell refrigerators to Eskimos. Sell them space heaters. You're going to make more money that way.
Know them, like them, trust them. I mean, it's both in leadership and sales, and it's so true. I love that. That's a really good analogy. Sell them heaters. They want heaters. Sell them heaters, damn it.
Absolutely right.
Hey, I want to move to just this little quick spot that I have just for a moment because we're running out of time, but I have a feeling that you probably use a lot of technology as a part of your day, but is there one piece of technology specifically that you feel like you couldn't do without?
It would be the telephone, being able to build an emotional relationship with people over the phone. I always say that if you're in sales, social media, it's kind of like having a website. Yes, people need to pay attention to you. But when they're making high-dollar, high-ticket decisions, there's going to be an emotional context to that relationship. And the only way, in my opinion, you can build a high-quality relationship is through personal interaction, whether it's in person or over the telephone. In fact, Doug, I even came up with an acronym for Twitter. It stands for time wasted in trying to escape rejection, TWITTER.
That's good. Wait a minute. We got to put that one down. Give me that one again. Give me that one again.
Yeah, time wasted in trying to escape rejection.
All right, Anna, do you hear that? That's what we want in the show notes. That's got to be the lead-in quote right here.
I log anywhere from 4 to 6 hours a day in telephone time. I check it. I document it every day. I'm in an Excel spreadsheet. I look in my call accounting software, and it tells me how much phone time I had. And so it's on the phone in front of people, talking to people, being able to ask questions that gets them to bring the walls down, tell us what their motivations are, and we sell to that. And the only way you can do that, especially if you're dealing with people that are in a sophisticated market, like I sell to partners for big law firms. I sell to law firms. It's a sophisticated market. I've got to get them to trust me. And these are the most untrusting, guarded, risk-averse people in the world. And it doesn't matter what I think about an opportunity. What matters is what's going on in their mind. And if they trust me, then I can lead them forward. And I do that in a way where I'm telling them, let's just go down this path. And if at any time you're not interested, I'm okay with that. This is your decision. The only thing that counts is you making decisions that benefit you. I give them permission. I say, here's the exit. If you don't want to go forward, here's the exit. All I ask is that you tell me about that. Then they trust me enough to tell me what their concern is. Well, is that a deal killer? Oh, it's just a deal complicator. Let's keep going forward. So I think sales and leadership, there's so many overlapping parallels that make sense. Whether you're a solo practitioner like myself, I've got one part-time employee, and I'm a leader in the community. I'm a leader when I'm talking to clients and to candidates. We're still involved in leadership. It directly applies to day-to-day sales in business.
I love what you're saying because now listen, Nice Guy community, listen, Scott is a highly I know Scott from C-Suite. Now, Jeffrey Hazlett would not have a friend that was a chump. Okay. So,
right.
And speaking to Jeffrey about you right after that conference, he had the highest things, held you in the highest regard. And not that Jeffrey would say a bad thing about anybody, but he certainly does not have to go on and on about the relationship or about the level of success that you've attained. It was almost like, okay, Jeffrey, I get it. He's a good guy. It was like I had to turn him off. So,
well, I appreciate that. He's a great guy.
So what's so great about it is that Scott brings to us the skills and the talent and the tactics of a leader's leader. And the thing that really got me the most is that what you just said just a moment ago, and you may not even realize it, is that you are basically a solopreneur and you have a part-time assistant. Right? Is that what you said?
That's right.
So the majority of what you do everything. You do your, at least preliminarily, you do your own accounting, you do your own appointments, you do your own phone, you do your own, everything is done on your own. And you can attain a level of success without having to be, the word, pardon my expression, but that fucking word scalable that everybody uses nowadays. It's like, I don't want to be scalable. Can't I just be myself? And you are proof in the pudding that you can be on your own and be successful.
That's right. And I outsource everything. Here's the digital shoebox to my CPA every year. Good luck. Let me know if you have any questions. I outsource a lot of that.
Yep.
I use technology to leverage my message. I also try to create strategic alliances. I ask myself, who are those people that can benefit by being in business with me? Where I've got strategic alliances with, for example, a legal vendor that wants to get access to law firms. I'll create content so that she'll have something to sell to them that gets their attention and it gives my brand some lift.
Right.
I'm also creating a poker tournament called the Attorney Poker Tour, benefiting the American Heart Association. And we're going to have that at the MGM Card Room here in D.C., where I'm going to get people involved in things that can benefit my brand, but only do it in a way that aligns their self-interest, because that's what people are interested in themselves. They're not interested in me or you.
Well, taking advantage of the relationships that you have in place does not mean, again, nice guy community, listen carefully. It does not mean that you have to have 50 people that work within your organization. Scott's just doing a great job of aligning himself with the partners and the people that can help boost his brand.
Yep.
All right. So, Scott, if people wanted to get a hold of your book, or if they wanted to get a hold of you, or just talk to you more, because you probably have all the time in the world, right? No time at all.
Operators are standing by. Just got nothing to do.
If you want,
I speak. I speak. I used to do over 50 paid gigs a year. I backed off that significantly. But if somebody has a conference, they can see my demo video and my program topics. My website is scottlove.com. That's SCOTTLOVE.com. My book, less than $20. You can find that on the link on my site. It takes you straight to Amazon. The title is called Why They Follow, How to Lead with Positive Influence. And if anybody has a conference, especially in the D.C. area or New York, because I get to New York about once a month, I'm interested in that also. If they're in D.C. or New York for conferences and meetings, it's certainly something I'm interested in talking with them about.
That is awesome. So, Scott, the book, obviously, as you know, is called Why They Follow. It's available on Amazon.com. And if you want more information about Scott, all of his contact info will be right in the show notes. Scott, thanks so much for being a part of the community.
Thank you, Doug. This is great. I appreciate it.
Our pleasure. Glad to have you here. Nice Guy community. Never underestimate the power of nice. Again, special thanks to Scott Love for being on the show today. Steve O'Brien, go ahead and take us out of here.
Click on the Patreon link in the show notes. And for as little as $2 a month, you can help support the podcast and get access to fun bonus content. That's like half a cup of Starbucks coffee once a month, a grande, double shot, maybe a little flavoring. Thanks for listening. I mean, seriously, you need to cut back on your caffeine anyway.
Yeah, that went down a really weird place.